All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Stephanie Warlick. Stephanie, so awesome to have you on the show today.
Evan, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to speak with you.
I am too. You and I got to have a conversation earlier, and I'll tell you, man, we just we made a really powerful connection, you and I do, and I have just been looking forward to this interview today, and I want to start. I got to start by giving a shout out to Jessica and the folks at the podcast guest platform because Jessica, that gal, she is just she reaches out to me on a regular basis, probably I mean one, two, three times a month and just personal messages that she sends to me and saying, Kevin, I think so and so would be a great person for you to interview for the $1 Million Relationships podcast. And she did that with you, and I checked out your profile on their platform, and I'm like, oh yeah, I really like this. And so I reached out to you, and the cool thing is Jessica, she has not once steered me wrong, not once. And she's been doing this for well over a year now, where she's been messaging me, and they send out a weekly email anyways with a list of like
Right.
15 people that you might want to have. But Jessica, for whatever reason, we did this thing about a year and a half ago where she had seen the podcast. Oh, I know what it was. They had asked me, hey, have you interviewed any of our folks for your podcast? And if so, will you, like, if you've done it in the last 60 days, will you send us the links to those interviews? And I think I had interviewed like three or four people in the last 60 days. And so I sent them the links.
Mm.
And Jessica got back to me and she's like, Kevin, you have one of the most unique podcasts I have ever seen. She goes, this is so awesome what you're doing. She goes, can I start referring people to you as well? And I'm like, yeah. and so she's been doing that ever since. And
That's
and
great.
I just really appreciate her. I really appreciate, I mean, all the amazing entrepreneurs I've met through her. And so now whenever she does it, I just always get excited because I'm like, ooh, I know this is going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
and,
I have a completely different perspective working with them. I'm not a podcaster, but I am often a guest. And I have not been on their platform very long, but it has really served me well. I think I've done 12 podcasts or so in the last couple
that's
months.
awesome.
So
That's
yeah, I'm
awesome.
really, it's been
Very
very
cool.
successful.
Very cool. Well, I'll tell you, I am really looking forward to having this conversation with you today. And, I want to start by just kind of turning it over to you, Stephanie, so that we can set a little bit of context
Sure.
and you can share whatever background and history you want to share and talk about, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work that you get to do and the impact you're making. We'll just kind of start there.
Okay. What inspires me? I'll start there. What inspires me is my passion for building business. I love small business. I love creating things and seeing them come to fruition. I have some undiagnosed something that I'm not great at taking things physically, from my mind to my hands and creating them. But when it comes to building business and strategy and executing, man, I can do that all day long. I love it. And I have had an entrepreneurial mindset since I was a child. I was always inventing things.
Okay.
So continuing to work with small businesses to facilitate their desire to grow their business and move forward, combined with I'm really very attention detailed. That operational experience that I have really is a great combination. So that's what inspires me. What also inspires me, I guess, is who I am as a person. I'm a mom of twin girls and a boy Vizsla dog. Um, my twin girls recently graduated from college, and that is so rewarding. My
Yeah.
husband and I worked through our small businesses for so many years too. And we were trying to get the end of this marathon and really kind of launch them into the success of their future. And we did it, and they are happy, and they have jobs, and they have positive relationships, and that's really the greatest gift in the world is and the most challenging job I've ever had to
Yeah.
be a mom. I think I did it successfully. I'm still doing it successfully, but our relationship is changing slightly, and um, we really do have very close friendship now. I'm not, of course, I'm their mom, but unlike the earlier years where I would say we're not friends, I'm your mom and you're my child. I love the women that they are, and I love being with them, and I love their boyfriends. One just became a fiance last weekend, so that's super
Wow.
exciting. We're gonna get a boy in the family, and then yeah, so my girls are there, a big part of my life. And how did I get here? As I said, I've always been in small business. We had family small businesses, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do until about 3 years ago. I was around 50, and my brother gave me a book called Range
Okay.
by David Epstein, and I love that book. It really talked about how one can be a generalist with a lot of breadth of experience, not necessarily depth like a doctor or an attorney might have, but a
Okay.
breadth.
Yeah.
And that breadth and that generalist aspect really does bring a lot of knowledge and experiences to someone so that they can be more successful in other areas. And he cites many famous artists and composers and different folks throughout the course of hundreds of years that, in fact, have varied experiences in education. So
Okay.
I finally read that, and I was like, I have value to add with all my years of experience in operational small business. I want to go back into managing small businesses. So that's what I do.
Nice. So, who is the ideal kind of business that you can bring your gifts and abilities to the table and are most valuable to?
Yeah, small businesses. I do work with medium, but primarily small businesses.
Okay.
2 to 40-ish people, probably at least $1 million in revenue. They could be as young as a couple months old, but probably not $1 million of revenue at that,
Sure.
it's old, but a young growth and startup. So I have a lot of HR experience and my operational experience, sales operations, finance, all of the back office aspects. So where I come in and add value to a new and growing small business is really helping them set a foundation. I kind of give the example of building a house. I help them lay the foundation so that they can build the walls and add the roof. And sometimes small business owners don't have these skills to lay the foundation, but they know how to do the roof and they know how to add the walls. But if the foundation of process, policy, clear definition of roles and responsibilities isn't established, the house will fall down.
Yeah.
So that's who I help. I help those folks. And really, as a former small business owner, I know what it's like to have your hair on fire and try and do the quotes and pay the bills and do the invoicing and answer the telephone and clean the bathroom and all those things that have to be done. And a small business owner needs to be able to rely on an individual that they can just say, can you please just take this off my plate? I need help. I'm not great at it, or I don't love to do it, or I just don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
And because of my experience, I just take that off their plate so their hair is not as much on fire, and maybe they can take a half day off and see their family that they haven't seen in a couple of weeks and help them grow and scale so that they can do what they love, the reason they started that business.
Yeah. Amen. I have been such a proponent of that for years. And because my first business, I started a cleaning and restoration business was my very first business that I started back in 1995. Now, end of 95, started 96. And, uh, and a few years into that business, I'll tell you what, I did not, I mean, I knew a guy in Seattle that he was in that industry. And from the outside looking in, it looked like things were going pretty well for him. And I thought, well, gosh, if he can do it, so can I.
Sure.
And a few years into that, I was like, I found myself working so many hours and weekends and all this, and I was in the office again on a weekend, and I was so frustrated. I mean, it had been a long week, so many hours. I was tired. I did not want to be there. I'm like, this is so
Right.
ridiculous. And
Right.
and that's when it really occurred to me. I was like, you know what? You have never even laid any boundaries or any, like, you do
Yeah.
not, you haven't made any decisions on what kind of business you really want to have and how you want it to fit in with your life. And
Right.
like, for the first time ever, I just sat there at my desk and I just started like, well, what do you even want? And I knew
Right.
one thing that topped the list that day was, I don't want to be in this dang office on weekends.
I want to go watch the football game. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And that is so common. A successful small business spirals out of control that quickly. And you don't even, because a small business owner often doesn't know all the things that they don't know, it kind of just becomes upon you. And and yeah, then you're like, oh crap, this is great. I'm really successful. But now what? Like I have no life and no one told me how to manage that process so that I could actually have a life and a successful business. It's
yeah,
very common.
yeah. And I will say, through that experience, I did start just really looking at, well, what do you want? How do you want your business to fit in with your life? And that particular business I ended up selling April 19th of 2004. I sold that business. I had started another business that had already getting some traction, and then ended up growing that business over the next 12 years, which was real. And but now that business, it fit in way better with the life that I wanted to live, and being a husband
Right.
and a father and all that. And of course, now, uh, I mean, my business fits in exactly how I want it to, because I've been so intentional about that. And
Right.
I always tell other entrepreneurs that you can totally have it all if you want. You just got to be clear on what you want, you know.
Right.
And
Right. And the key, when you talk about what you want, the key aspect of that I focus on with small business owners, because I say I use the phrase executive doer. I'm not sure that I love that, but the point is that I'm not just a consultant says, here are all the things you need to do and hand you a 3 stack of papers with suggestions and then walk out the door. I actually just work side by side and have them delegate. And the key is I use the EOS methodology. That's I'm a big proponent of that methodology. Um, they use the term delegate and elevate. And really, the visionary, the small business owner needs to delegate anything that can go to other people. And they start with the things they don't like and they're not good with. And then they move, toward the things that they don't want to do, they might be okay with. And eventually, they're only doing the things that they're great at, that they love to do. And that's really the best use of not only their time, but all employees' time, to
yeah,
take individuals' skills and abilities and optimize them based on what the needs of the organization and again their skills and abilities. And so delegate and elevate, and that's how you get to this potential work-life balance.
yeah, yeah. That is awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. And so, Stephanie, have you ever met or been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business so much that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Stephanie, I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
I love this question. And when you first reached out and asked me the question, immediately I knew the answer and I thought, gosh, I wonder if that's acceptable. There is without a doubt in my mind that it's my husband.
Okay. Okay. I
And
love
the reason that it's my husband is not only are we awesome life partners and have been together since 1993. We met the first day of college. But we were small business owners together and for many years. And I think as I describe the story too, and all these qualities that he has and all the things that he taught me as a young person, um, the takeaway I want to be is that it is amazing to work with your partner. So many people shy away from that, thinking, no, you don't want to be together that much. But I mean, really, like, if you have this beautiful dance and marriage that you're going through and you tag team with the kids and you enjoy each other's company and of course you have trust, which is something you absolutely need to have in a partner, why wouldn't it work in the small business, right? And so I guess I'll go back to the beginning to tell that story.
Yeah, do.
We met the first day of college. I'm an identical twin. And we went to the University of Delaware, which is a really kind of interesting coincidence. My husband and I each got into three schools. So there was a very high likelihood that we could have met each other at one of three different colleges. And I think that's a really, I think about how did we cross paths at such a young age. He had just turned 18 the day before, and I'm about 6 months older. So here we met. He observes these identical twins coming in, and he thought we were cute. And somehow he decided that he liked me more than my sister. I don't know, which worked out fine. She had a boyfriend. And then we kind of flirted for a week, and then he asked me out on our first date a week later. And I guess there were a few breaks. There were some Ross and Rachel moments over the years. We dated for 8 years before we got married, and right before our wedding in 1997. I had been working in human resources and it was not a positive work environment. I ended up leaving, came to his small business that he had established 3 years before. And I had already been doing books for him on the weekends and evenings on QuickBooks, old school QuickBooks. We're talking about like dial-up days, right?
I remember those days.
Right, right. There was no QuickBooks Online. It was just it was all, hard drive on your computer kind of thing. And I was doing the books in evenings and weekends. I came into his shop. He ran a promotional marketing business and he was performing screen printing day and night and
Okay.
had really done well for a few years. But his partner that he started with went to law school. So I was doing the books and I just came in and I said, okay, I quit my job and I don't even know what I'm thinking because we have a wedding to pay for in 3 months. What am I going to do? And because I didn't have anything else to do and I was really just trying to not bawl, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just quit before our wedding. I started cleaning the shop and organizing, and besides doing the books on just evenings and weekends, I started to pick up all these other responsibilities. And before I knew it, I was there for a week, right? And I looked at him like he's busy doing his thing, and we hardly saw each other all day long. And I kept looking at him and I went, after a week, I'm like, do I have to leave? Can you just hire me? Because I really am having a great time here, and it looks like you need me because I've been busy full time for a week. And and again, just like our marriage, we have very different skills and abilities. So he's super creative. He's very calm temperamented. I'm an Italian Irish firehead and but he's very entrepreneurial. We do have that in common. Very entrepreneurial. We actually had a little t-shirt gig going on even in college, which was so fun. Um but what I love and what he did for me as an 18-year-old was teach me things that were so different than the way my family did things.
Okay.
And it was a beautiful and amazing way to learn that there's other ways to do things in the world. And I'll tell you one that sticks with me every single day. And thank gosh, my daughters adopted it. I came from an environment where you got angry with a vendor or something like that. You just instantly raised your voice and said, I'm unhappy with this, or something like that. He came from an environment that you get more bees with honey.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
And he instantly taught me that. And I would watch him and I'm like, wow, like he got really screwed in that. And he didn't yell. He just made a joke about it and made them laugh. And he actually got more than what he was supposed to get to begin with. And so that right there is probably one of the things at the top of the list. He also uses humor all the time to really just kind of engulf people and make them come in. People like gravitate to him. I love telling this. He gets free stuff wherever he goes. And no one believes me when I share this example, but one time when the twins were about 3 or 4, I flew with my mom to Italy to visit my little sister who was studying abroad. And I told the flight attendant that I was traveling with my mom, but that my husband was staying home with the twins. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, your husband's taking care of those young twins all by himself." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, moms do it every day. Come on." And but she was like, "That's so amazing. You get to go away." She brought me a bottle of champagne on the plane so I could take home to him.
Wow. Wow. He's not even there and he's getting free stuff.
Right. But it is this really happy um why else did he change my life? So I'm kind of describing to you all of these things that I learned that he is as a person, that he showed me how to be and become at 18 years old, that I had not learned. The other was that when you get knocked down, just get back up. Like, I think I grew up in an environment where there was a little bit more coddling and babying and maybe a little self-pity when things don't go right. And he just literally jumps back up and he's like, "Yeah, I got a chance to do it again." And when and when he used to leave the house in the morning, he'd say, "I'm gonna go tackle the dragon now." And he literally, like, depending on how hard of a day it is, sometimes it's I'm gonna tackle the dragon, sometimes it's like I'm gonna grab the gnat. Like, there's just different
Uh-huh.
varying degrees of what kind of day it's gonna be. And I it has made my life so happy and fulfilled because I wake up every day with this person with this positive attitude that's ready to go and truly believes. I mean, he loves Bob Marley, but everything's going to be all right, no matter what it is. And we're going to ride it out. And I think it's so much his mentality. We've started hiking together in the last year. He's been on a fitness program and lost 40 pounds. He's super excited to get healthy and
Wow.
fit. And so he hikes several days a week. And even when we're going up a tough hill, I'll say, "Are you doing okay?" And he'll say, "I'm outstanding." And I'm like, why are you always outstanding? But it's a beautiful thing. And I really admire him for all of those things. And I have been able to take each of the examples of that positive attitude and that way he communicates with individuals and apply that to every bit of my workspace. Whether we've been as a small business, at some point I left our small business and went into government contracting. We chose that although we were working really well together, that the economy was getting a little tight after 2008, and with the girls getting ready for college, we really wanted to diversify our income, which I think, is any good investor would say is a prudent thing to do. It was just getting a little bit scary having one source of income. So I left for about 12 years and did some other corporate things before I started my own small business about a year ago again. And I'm back to not only loving small businesses, but really, really just applying those things that I've learned from him every day.
Yeah.
In fact, yesterday he was having a tough day, and I said, "Remember, you tell me every day, or you've told me for over 30 years that everything's going to be okay. You've
Gonna be
never
okay.
steered me wrong, right?"
Yeah.
And so much of it is because of the positive attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I I know it, and so even on my days that I feel like having a little bit of self-pity, like things are tough, I just look at him and I'm like, right, like there has been a pattern of everything's going to be all right for years, and it's tough to run a small business. I mean, we remortgaged our house twice. We we've been in debt, we've been out of debt.
Yeah.
We like to say we had money during the Clinton era. We haven't had much money since then. But we were paying for kids to go to college, and here we fast forward, and I feel like every decade has become even more, what is the word, fulfilling, I guess. Like, it's great. But he taught me those things that have helped me have a successful small business, and he loves me. I mean, I guess, you talk about impacted my life. His positive attitude has spread to our girls, and um, he loves and accepts me. I don't know if it's coming through on the podcast, but I'm kind of a spaz. I am ADHD, and sometimes I'm a lot for people. I'm, I'm a lot for people, and I'm very genuine, but I'm pretty enthusiastic, and sometimes it's just overwhelming for people. I know that I've come to appreciate at this age that those people who love me dearly and appreciate who I am because I
That's right.
give and I am enthusiastic, and those that
Yep.
don't, okay, yeah, I'm not your person, that's okay.
That's
But he
okay.
loves
That's
right?
yep.
But he loves me and accepts me for who I am, and my life, whether it's my personal life or my business life, would absolutely not be the same
Yeah.
without having met him.
Yeah. Wow. It is so abundantly clear, Stephanie, how much you just love and appreciate your husband. That comes through so loud and clear. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I mean, I think about my own relationship with my wife, Lisa, and, we met in '03. We got married in '05, so we celebrated our 19th anniversary in August. And I could not even imagine life without her. And and it's not that I need her. It's like we just complement each other so
Yes,
well, you know.
yes,
And I just love having her in my life, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and so it's so neat to see other couples who just love and appreciate each other so much, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and the thing is when we have that in our life, it shows up in our business too and stuff.
yeah.
And this whole thing, and I think I was telling you I before we started recording here. One of my buddies, Vincent, a couple of weeks ago, he's got a group of entrepreneurs that he serves. He's got several hundred people that he serves, that his company serves, and he was hosting a Zoom call for some of them, and there was about 50 people on this Zoom call, and he asked me if I would be willing to come and share. And we had just put this thing on the calendar a couple months ago, and so a couple weeks ago I did that with him, and he asked me some questions that ended up, we were having about an hour long conversation, and in that conversation, one of the things that I do, and I love doing, is issuing this, what I call the active appreciation challenge, because what I know for a fact is that no matter who somebody is, no matter how successful they are, no matter how big of a business they have, no matter how great things might look for somebody from the outside looking in, there is not a person on the face of this earth who gets too much appreciation. And so when we just show up and we just make the decision that I am going to be appreciative of the people in my life. And I'm not just going to do it and say, man, I really like that person, and say it to ourselves, because, that's cool, but we got to let them know. We got to tell them. And,
Mm.
and I've been doing this, a buddy of mine, really gave me some context for this 12 years ago. And so every day I have just making it an intentional point to just be appreciative of the people in my life. And that could be my kids, my wife, my extended family, my clients, other entrepreneurs that I know and that I'm just friends with, even people that I don't even know, that I might see them on social media or something, and like see something that they put out. I'm like, wow, that's really awesome. Well, I'll message them and let them know. And maybe they see that message and maybe they don't, but I'm
Right.
gonna send some appreciation. And
That's nice.
and so I issued that active appreciation challenge, and I told them, I said, look, here's the deal. We all have cell phones with contacts in them. And for the purpose of this exercise, it doesn't matter whether this is family, whether it's friends, whether it's business associates, whatever. What I want you to do is, between now and the next 24 hours, I want you to send messages to 10 people minimum. at least 10 people. And in those messages, you're just going to let each of those people know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them. And you're not going to ask for anything in return. You're not even going to ask for a response in return. You are just going to send out some love and show some appreciation for
Right.
these people. And I said, and when you do that, minimum 10 people in the next 24 hours, you watch what happens.
Hmm.
I said, you are going to have such an amazing experience. So are they. And I said, you are also going to realize that you were the catalyst for that, that your actions caused that to happen, and you can do that again whenever you want. And I'm not saying that you need to send 10 messages out every single day, but what I am saying is just let this be who you are and how you show up. And for
Yeah.
me personally, I'm sending at least either 1 to 3, whether it's messages or I'm just talking to somebody or whatever. I'm at
Right.
least letting 1 to 3 people a day know that they're loved and appreciated. And
Yeah.
and it's been an absolute game changer over the last 12 years. It has opened so many doors. It has helped me grow my business. It has put me in contact with people that I could have never imagined or even thought possible, all just because I was appreciative. And so I shared that. And last Friday, I get this audio message via Facebook Messenger that was 6 minutes and 50 seconds long. I've never received an audio. In fact, I saw it. I'm like, oh, I have to make time to listen to that. But the gentleman, he was on that call I did for my friend Vincent, and he got extremely emotional in this
Hmm.
message that he sent me talking about the experience that he's been having over the last couple of weeks. And he's like, Kevin, I am so grateful to you. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it was the most amazing thing to receive that message from him and to hear about what's been going on in his world and all the people. He's like, Kevin, I started off, I was going to do 10 people a day and I was just going to keep on. And he's like, but he's like, I had such a response and I wanted to interact with people. He's like, I can't. I'm not doing 10 a day, but man, he's like, I'm having such an amazing experience just
Right.
communicating with these people and the conversations we're having
Yeah.
now. And he's like, it's amazing. And it's like, wow, how awesome is that?
That's
And
great.
you show up that way. You just are that way too and stuff. And it comes through. And I just that was a long way at getting to this point. I'm like, Stephanie, you are this. You're like me. You're just really appreciative of people in your life, and you just show up that way. And I can only imagine, how that has just affected so many things in your life and stuff, and in other people's lives of just you just being that way. You know,
Yeah. Thank
and
you.
that's
I
what I'm
try.
talking.
And I think that's a really amazing, great thing to perform that graciousness with your staff. Like I've always done that, whether it was in my own company or staff that I had, I regularly thanked them for
Yeah,
their effort, for their work, for their contribution, because although not everybody does need it, to be honest. I actually had a guy that I adore one time tell me, you don't need to say that to me. I'm good whether you say that to me or not. I was like, okay. I thought it was a nice thing to do, but okay. But most people want to know that they're making a valuable contribution, that the efforts that they're putting forth are going towards something and not just wasted time and space. And so I really have had positive relationships with employees by doing that. And I think that's a really great thing to remember is that we go to work and we put on this hat of whatever role we're performing, but we're really just all people just trying to get through every day with all the shit that we have going on in
that's
life,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And all of this stuff and family and in our generation it's the kids and the parents and there's a lot going on and then you've got these tragedies of the weather in the South right now that I mean I barely slept last night worrying about my friends multiple ex-coworkers former coworkers in Tampa and
yes,
all the things people in North Carolina and South Carolina and Florida are going through right now like and they're still just trying to show up for work and be that person. So thanking them, like thank you for being here and contributing is so important. You also said one other thing about your wife, about how you guys complement each other. And I hope that one of the takeaways that your listeners have is that complement of each other and the way you balance life, the whether it's man-to-man defense with the kids or tag teaming, or James and I used to say, are we going to man-to-man defense? Or are we doing zone on zone defense when we have the twins as toddlers running around? You know, that tag team of, okay, I'm going to go home early from work today and you stay and finish what you need to at work. Tomorrow I'm going to go in early and you get them off to school kind of thing was really such a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
I He was guided very heavily when I joined him to not have his new wife work with him. And I, coming from small businesses, just kept saying, why? Like, I've been in family businesses since I was 14. Like, what's wrong with that? We all support each other. This is where we all put our dedication and energy. And it turned out to be great. And he stayed on his side, and I stayed on his side. And we did have this communication expectation that we would try and leave work at work. And when we go home, and we were dedicated to the girls. And I would love your listeners to know that it can be a beautiful thing. And don't worry about the naysayers. The naysayers are because they have a person in their life that they don't want to be with 24/7. But if you love that person and you enjoy that person and you have that complement of each other's skills and abilities, it's such an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I'd do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. I can tell part of what I do, and I don't do it a lot, and like COVID put a damper on it for a period of time, but I love hosting in-person get-togethers for
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, and I've done them right here at my home. In fact, the very first one that I ever did was in August of 2017, and 15 entrepreneurs flew in for an event that I held, and I just wanted to get them together for a couple of days and introduce them to each other because I knew that if I did, that they would just make real and meaningful connections, and that would help all of them be able
Right.
to expand their businesses and make bigger impacts because now they were doing it together versus on their own. And that is exactly what happened. And but through that, my wife and my daughters helped because one of the things, we charged $5,000 a person to attend that event. And because what I wanted to do is I wanted to create an experience where everybody just showed up. And once they got here, they didn't have to worry about nothing. They could just
Right.
be, you know. And
Right.
so everything was covered. We had food here in the morning had a great breakfast, and my wife and daughters helped prepare that. And then at lunchtime, they would go and pick up food and bring it back, from restaurants or what have you, and set it all up for us. And then they make sure we had plenty of snacks and all that, and coffee and drinks. And then at nighttime, I rented like these big limo buses to come pick us up and take us out to dinner at nice restaurants, and then take everybody back to the hotels afterwards. And then my family would go with. And even I remember my son Brock, so he was born in '08, so 2017, he would have been 9 years old. And he came home from school that day when we were all out there in the living room, right on the other side of the wall. And he just pulled up a chair and sat down in that living room and didn't say a word and just sat there and listened to what was going on. I've got a picture that we had a photographer, and she took a picture of him sitting there just listening intently. And so he would have been, yeah, 9 years old. And I'm like,
He has to be an entrepreneur.
well, I'll tell you, he's 16 now. He's 16 years old now. And so he's just starting he got his driver's license. And so now he's kind of trying to figure out, okay, what he's going to do he wants to get a job for, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do and stuff. And so, I love having my family, my wife and my kids and all of that involved. And I just did another event in April of this year. I rented a 20,000 square foot castle in my hometown here. And we had some entrepreneurs coming in. Once again, my wife couldn't make it well, she came and stopped and visited one day with the kids, but she was watching our grandkids. And
Yeah.
so my two daughters, they took the couple of days off work and they helped out. And it was just so cool to
Yeah.
have them there and have them have that experience and have the people, the entrepreneurs that came saying, man, Kev, your daughters are just so amazing, and just talking with them and just having them involved in it. And it is, it's kind of like this, family business, if you will, where in my case, my whole family's involved in it. And I couldn't imagine it being any other way,
Right.
you know
Right.
and
Right.
it's just incredibly rewarding. And I think how cool is it that we can have this business if we desire, if that's something that we want, and then it's in alignment with us, that's totally a possibility,
It is.
and
Yeah.
I really want to thank you so much, Stephanie, for taking the time to have this conversation today and just share from your heart. And for anybody, because you know what, there's a lot of cool entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast, and there's some of them that might be now thinking like, wow, Kev, I really like Stephanie and I like the way she shows up, and you know what, man, it might even make sense for me to have a conversation with her because she might be able to help us out a little. And for anybody that might be thinking something like that, Stephanie, how can they? Is there any website, any resources that they can go check out to connect with you more?
The best website for consulting is the number 5,
Uh-huh.
FT for foot view, VIEW.com.
Okay.
That's my website and my contact information. It is not because I'm 5 foot tall. I'm actually 5'5". But it's the 5 foot view is the opposite of the 30,000 foot view. Instead of strategy and high level thinking, I'm down in the weeds and the operational tactical side by side with owners. So the 5 foot view.
I love that. I love that. Well, Stephanie, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I am really excited to get this out there and share it with other entrepreneurs because I know how impactful it's going to be. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for letting me tell the story. I appreciate you giving me the space, and I'm so proud of the relationship that my husband and I have created, and eternally grateful for this beautiful life that I have. And I'm how often do I get to tell that story? So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. You are so welcome.